there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss now! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will crush.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man! None of it is true!
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs! In God's name, you people are the real thing! We are the illusion!
Welcome back to the Deep Share Podcast. I am very excited. Tonight, I'm speaking with Mr. Bootsy Greenwood. Wait, did I say that right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
No.
yeah, you did. You did.
Okay, all right. Just making sure.
It's an anecdotal. It's an anecdotal name, really, kind of anyway. Because, and yeah, I'm happy to share deeply about it. There's a whole lot, but ultimately, I'll make it quick at first. It's my stripper name. You know, it's the first pet you ever had, and then the street you grew up on is how you calculate that. And
That's awesome.
and so my name, Owen Hunt, is my birth name, is a character on the show Grey's Anatomy, like a fictitious character. So if you search for Owen Hunt on the internet, that's all that comes up for, like, I don't know, hundreds of pages.
Yeah. So it was a good marketing move as well.
Saved me a lot of money on SEO so far.
That's cool. It's funny. I lived on a Greenwood Street.
That's awesome.
That's a cool little synchronicity right there. So we were talking before we recorded that you went roller skating recently and you had a blast, and it was actually something that you had put kind of out there and, you know, as like almost an intention, and then let it go, and boom, there it is.
I count on magic. You know, I once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I was just talking to my friend about this at the roller rink, and I told her this very story. I'm going through The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. I highly recommend it to anybody, like, to go through that book several times, you know, however many times it takes. It's really about just getting in tune with yourself and, you know, finding an authentic voice creatively. That's really what it's about. If you're blocked or if you're stuck or in a rut, it's a great book for that. But you don't have to be in a rut, right? Like it will help you no matter where you're at, just to dig a little bit deeper. And one of the exercises I do Tuesdays, so that's yesterday. I thought it was 2 days ago, but it's yesterday. Is like, write down something that you used to love to do, but you haven't done in a long time. And I wrote rollerblading. And because I was pretty good on those things, man, you know. I remember when they came out, they were so cool, you know, and everybody was on these, you know, old ratchet four-wheeled like trucks, you know, like kind of things. And I was like, man, rollerblading, that's what's up. Mighty Ducks came out.
Yeah, man, we were all in my street with 2 hockey nets, full pads, everybody on rollerblades. It's like the closest thing to the real thing, right?
It was awesome. Those were the days, man. I was pretty nervous driving up to that roller rink, though. I thought I was going to walk in there, you know, and because it looked like I was there to pick up my son or something. People look at me like weird, but there were a lot of people at the roller rink that were, you know, there was just a wide array of people. When we were in middle school, that was what we did. I remember. So I had like all these memories coming back too.
That's
which
cool, man.
Is an added bonus, maybe. I count it that way, but there was some weird feelings too that pop up. I think it's about, you know, integration and allowing that stuff to work its way through you, you know, so it's not always going to be comfortable, but it was awesome. I wasn't bad, you know, I didn't bust I fell once, but
is it kind of like riding a bike where you don't really ever forget?
Your body is like, it knows what to do and it wants to do more than what your body can currently do because it used to, you know, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, like whoa, slow down. Slow
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
I did that on a bike recently. I was with my buddy and he found some like badass spot down by the water or something like that. And I was just with him on a random day recently and I had no idea we were doing this. He's like, yeah, get on this bike here. I'm like, oh, okay. But it had been like 10 years since I got on a bike. And then we were riding through the woods. I'm like, oh my God. And I felt like it was my first day back on a bike. I'm like, they lie. After a certain point, it takes a little bit and then you remember.
I'll try to keep that in mind next time I get laid.
So we've been kind of chatting randomly about like secret society kind of stuff. And I know that we're both kind of interested in that. And I was curious where you kind of got your start into that. Like, what was the first, not like first conspiracy, but in this kind of realm of things? I know that you're interested in the same way I am into like the old history, the secret history, the hidden shit. What was your first foray or most important foray?
Yeah, that would have been for me in 2012. And, I charted kind of a long path. I went into a lot of this history and stuff like that. Not the stuff that's coming out now, which I know we want to talk about, but, stuff about the education system, the Rockefeller, all that stuff, and really held a lot of contempt for the institutions, the systems, everything really about the world, which didn't help me at all. It just put me in a box, made me more fearful and angry at the world, which ultimately didn't afford me very much opportunity. So I had to snap out of that because it was in a really depressed sort of state. There's David Hawkins' map of consciousness is a really amazing model of like where we maybe find ourselves in a vibrational scale. Not that we don't ping pong around it like crazy, because we fucking do, but like ultimately we also, I think, gradually move up and down on this sort of thing. And I was in a place where I felt victimized and I was really depressed and doing a lot of research, literally living in my dad's basement. But I would say a lot of the stuff that was really impactful for me was John Taylor Gatto, who wrote a lot of books. He was a teacher, and Richard Grove interviewed him on The Ultimate History Lesson. And that particular video series was incredible because there's this just super charming and kind, sweet old man who is very well educated and very smart, just laying down history, all the things that we didn't really know about it. That was really a pivotal one for me personally, as far as like a specific, like whatever you want to call it, which is not a conspiracy at all, because all they were doing is talking about Carol Quigley's book, Tragedy and Hope, and talking about, what really happened and how this country was founded and how the bankers came over and basically corrupted everything. And, all the Jekyll Island thing, all of that stuff. A lot of the financial stuff really kind of blew my mind when I understood what money was, what fiat currency is, and how, we're basically being charged to use our own money. Like,
yeah. Like, did you ever like browse through what the hell's the name of that book? Modern Money Mechanics.
Oh,
That's supposedly like one of the main instruction manuals for how this whole system was going to be set up. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty damning when you look into it.
It's sinister, man. Even just knowing what I know, the little bit I know about it, is just absolutely seething with the cruelest of intentions. It's just savage, man. Savage as fuck.
Absolutely.
But that was the stuff that really kind of got, because I didn't want to go Alex Jones. It was 2012, I got into that a little bit, but I had to get away from that. I couldn't even do that. But I ultimately had to kind of that's really what forced me to kind of into a spiritual sort of seeking, because I had to get out of that funk. There was just I wasn't myself anymore. I was super withdrawn from the world. And I feel for anybody who has dealt with that or is dealing with that. I kind of see our journey as kind of a 3-part incarnation where you destroy your old belief system, then you have to kind of create a new one and use what I would consider, I would hope that you would add some positivity and things like that to that. And then opening up some space and really finding our real genuine voice with source or whatever you want to call that, you know?
Yeah, man. When I saw your talk on that 3-part thing, I mean, I was like visualizing it the whole time, like all of my memories from those phases. And I feel it's weird how I feel like those 3 phases of like the awakening or the enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, it's like they happen 9 times a day as well. It depends on what scale you're on in that moment. If you follow what I mean, it's like, you know, the you put things more under a microscope in your life and you can see these kind of things happening often where like we have these little mini awakenings. It's maybe it's just evidence that it's an ongoing process and not just the aha moment, perhaps, you know?
I think that's very accurate, you know, and that's part of the fun, you know, too.
Yeah.
You know, the breadcrumbing, I would say, of the universe.
Good way to put it.
Something about that, you know, if you've read the book The Alchemist, if anybody out there's listening, that's such a great book. That's just very illustrative of how the universe works and speaks. It's a fiction book, but I mean, it's a great allegory to understand.
Who wrote that one?
Paulo Coelho. He's a Brazilian guy.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
I
it's
haven't
a
read
fiction.
it though.
Yeah, it's a fiction book. I recommend it. That's a good one. You know,
Yeah, a lot of times the fiction is more truthful than other stuff. Sometimes, you know, it's the best way to get it across in some ways.
Yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's really fun to read it that way too, because I read a lot of. I narrate a bunch of. I've just finished the Dhammapada actually. I narrate a lot of like, you know, nonfiction audiobooks, self-help kind of stuff. So it's really nice to read something that's narrative once in a while.
Yeah, man. How did you get into that anyway?
I just started doing it.
Oh, okay. So this wasn't something where you had to like get licensing or anything like that. You just kind of did it for like a free therapeutic kind of thing.
I just started making audiobooks on YouTube because I didn't want to be really telling people how to live their life, but I had come across all these great books that I felt like would be really helpful and transformational for people if they did read them. So I started reading them and just created them. And it took me a while before I started making like, you know, whatever it's called, talking head videos or whatever, because I felt awkward about that. But ultimately, you know, I did just to kind of try to explain some of the concepts. But yeah, I just started making audiobooks because I thought they were important, you know, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I started. And
yeah, I've seen you do them. I just assumed that like you had like deals going with all the authors or the publishers or something. I was like, oh, this guy's got it made. I've always wanted to do this.
I think there's a way to do that. And I think it's easier than ever. Like there's even like ACX, there's a couple other exchanges where you can build a profile.
Oh,
and
cool.
if someone publishes a book, of course it's on fucking Amazon, but if someone publishes a book through Amazon, then they can hire, you know, someone through that website and they can narrate the book. And there's a couple other ones. There's like voices.com. There's several websites where you can put your voice and like just a few sample clips and all that kind of stuff. So they're out there. I'm just like, I'm just, I don't know. I'm just like the guerrilla style guy. And I make a lot of stuff too for my clients. Like I'll make my clients audiobooks.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing it just purely to help and spread word, which is great.
Yeah, I also need to learn, you know, efficiency or maybe add a splash of art onto it. Hopefully I'll have some collaborations coming up with some like cool music and stuff in the back or something. I'm spicing things up back here. I'm cooking.
Hell yeah, man. Yeah, it's always good to kind of spice things up and keep things going. It's like I have a million ideas for this show, for the other show I'm doing, and it's just like I don't know. I'm trying to find time. I'm trying to like find pockets of time or something like that and expand them. And I think now I'm seeing it as like more of like a meditative process where I'm seeing that I have no time because that's just what I'm repeating to myself probably over and over again. Maybe, I don't know.
I mean, time management
is things.
Time management's tough. I mean, I have a hard time with that, you know. It's like, and I can't schedule out pacing, you know, like
Yeah.
who writes that in their schedule, you know?
Oh,
But
that'd be beautiful.
It's tricky, man. It is tough. It's a lot to balance, you know, and I think that's what all this comes down to. And I think we'll probably cover this a bit just chatting tonight, you know. It's like, because I really do want to encourage people and inspire people, but you know, even before we set off air, it's like, if there's a tornado coming, I want to know there's a tornado coming, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to just pretend like there's not. And there's so much toxic positivity in the spiritual sort of new age movement. But I also, my heart is to demystify all that shit, because when I first like woke up, whatever, when I started watching history videos and all these things, I realized how stupid I was. And I was like, my God, I am dumb. Like, I remember watching, you know, something, just, I had to accept the fact that everything I thought I knew was wrong, basically. You know, that was step one. And it hurt me. Like, I emotionally suffered a lot from that. So other people maybe don't as bad as I did. But, you know, I feel like it's important to take that step, but not become a just solid skeptic after that. There is a force in the universe. There is something magical that's happening. I might have gone full on Ayn Rand objectivist had I not had grown up in the Pentecostal church and saw some shit that I just couldn't explain, right? So I want to try and bring the mystical to as practical and boiled down, simplified as possible, you know? And that's really what I think my calling is, or whatever purpose, however, you know, people want to label that. I
think you're doing a great job of it, man. And I resonate with it big time, because I mean, my background is in psychedelics, and that's been my path to all this. And it's such a bizarre experience, yet it somehow fits in and relates to everything that I see. And it kind of gave me as above, so below, before I had ever read the concept or knew who Hermes Trismegistus or anything was. I had no interest in any of this stuff. So that was kind of my pathway into all of it. And ever since, I've just been seeing how it's all related. And yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure, but it's been a lot of ups and downs and a lot of dark night of the soul. And it's interesting too. I've only recognized that dark night of the soul thing years after it was happening, way afterwards. You know, it's especially back when there was not a big force on the internet to connect with at one time either. So it was like, unless your group of friends were getting woke to this stuff too, which, I mean, even friends that were tripping with me, you know, weren't often having this level of experience, I guess you could say. It's weird. Maybe, I don't know, but
I don't know what is the barrier there? Why can we come so far together but not see this thing that you would like? I don't know.
Well, you know, it's like, it always goes back to the individual, right? And the past experiences we've had and what we've learned to just brush off or look away from, I guess. But I don't know, that maybe that doesn't hold up, because the psychedelic experience specifically is very good at taking those kind of people and slapping them right in the face and be like, no, you're going to listen. There's no way out of this. Right. So it's, I don't know, man. It's weird. I think what happened to me, the more I learn about like outer body experiences and near death experiences, and I've heard it from a lot of people, usually the people that write about psychedelics or were revolutionaries about it are the ones that had like this kind of spiritual additive of the experience. You know, maybe it was somehow we were meant to have that experience, just like the near-death experiences and stuff like that, you know, even though our friends were doing the mushrooms with us, they weren't sent to have that part. I don't know. That sounds a little glorious though. a little too Indiana Jones, Excalibur. What other ones?
Sword in the Stone.
The hero's path. That's what it was. It's the hero's path that we all like encounter, I think, right? That wakes us up and gets us ready to rock and gets us digging into Tartaria and all this ancient shit that we're interested in.
I'm so interested in it, man. I'm super curious about it because I don't even know what reality is still, even after 8 years. So anything else is just, I guess, just icing on top of icing at this point, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like I used to say that you could fill into any argument at any point. Listen, we can't even 100% prove that we're here right now. Right. So maybe we should just calm down.
Yes.
And take the trading of Drew Bledsoe a little less seriously or something.
Absolutely, dude. That's so well said. I can.
So speaking of the Tartarus and all that,
yeah.
What's your perspective on Tartary? I mean, I know that right now I would say there's limited perspectives because it's new information, which is bizarre and kind of bothersome to me. But what's your take on how you heard about Tartaria, and what's your feelings towards it?
It is amazing. I just there's so much information coming out, and of course you don't know what to believe, what's fake, what's not, what's the troll, what's this, what's that. There's no telling, the rabbit hole goes, so freaking deep. But I am super into it. I actually got into it via a flat earth documentary. And it was this guy, Iwaranon. It's super long. He's got 2 of them that I've seen.
Oh,
and
guess what? There's another 2 hours that just came out. I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a 6 hour, an 8 hour. Yep. And now apparently he put out another 2 hours.
It's amazing the connections that he was making in there. I've never, and I'm not too crazy on Clubhouse, but I'm on there a bit, just because I like to hear what people are scuttlebutting about, especially in this realm. And there's some good rooms in there where people are talking about preparedness and helping people wake up, frankly. So I'll hop in there from time to time, and I like to hear what other people are talking about, and conspiracies and conjecture and ideas, and the more outrageous in a way, the more entertaining and fun it can be. All this stuff used to be a lot more fun when it was so far away, right? Comedy is distance, and
it's like the lizard people stuff is getting more frightening the more I joke about it.
Right. Well, be careful. You might write down something about the lizard people, and then they just the next day, you show up at the roller rink and they're ready. You know what I mean?
Velociraptors on 4 wheels.
That's right, dude. But it's so interesting to me because I see a lot of evidence just in my little town that is things that don't make sense. We've definitely been lied to about some of the dates. The Arc de Triomphe was built in 1836 to whatever, bro. I ain't buying that. Or somehow before the drill was invented. There's just so many things. What it did to me was it opened up more questions than it did answers, even though he was making all these connections. But I've heard people talk about some of the biblical history and some of the other ancient history and roll that stuff up too. So I don't know. I mean, I have a couple of theories, but I don't know. I mean, I can throw shit out there just for funsies.
That's the whole point, right? Because just like you said, a Waranon, or however he goes, whatever he goes by, he makes some intense connections that it's kind of those situations where you're like, well, shit. And you try to find the alternative. You're like, well, wait a minute. Oh man. The stuff he talked about with the crystalline, everything was silicon before it was carbon, that kind of stuff. It's wow. Okay. Well, if you look into some of this, it's exactly what geologists kind of suggest, and he's making a lot of interesting connections. But you can kind of treat it like Ancient Aliens, right? When I watched Ancient Aliens, it was usually to just kind of take the word alien off of the end of George Tsoukalos' sentence and just put a big question mark, because everything that they were highlighting was always important. These are all pieces to the puzzle. We all are possibly personalizing our take on it without trying to, you know what I mean? So who knows what order we may have things a little off, you know?
Right. Yeah.
I often say that, like in the movies, you see the foreshadowing, you know, the audience is supposed to kind of know where things are going, but it never looks the way that they set it up to look. So it still remains fresh. And reality does that too, it seems.
Yeah. And I mean, the more information that comes out, the more I can see a case for history repeating itself in several of these resets, you know what I mean, happening for now. And I mean, some of the stuff that he presents in there is just all too creepy, man. It's just like, it just, you know, makes your neck hair like pop up and stuff. It's like, that's such a good question, you know?
How do you feel about the inclusion, or almost like the foundation of those films being flat Earth?
I don't know that it's even relevant to the rest of it, you know?
Like it might fit otherwise?
I'm interested in flat Earth, really. I've seen a lot of David Weiss's work on it, and a couple other presenters that I thought they brought some really good points up. And so I'm certainly open to it. I like the fact that people are asking questions still. Like that's should be more than allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
definitely.
That should be encouraged and cheered for. Like, yes, that's how we make new discoveries and, you know, create amazing solutions to problems. Anyway, I'll step off the soapbox, but
hey, I'm right there with you, man.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know if it even matters. To me, it's never mattered. I've thought it was interesting. It's a great way for me to, like, to some people it really matters, and I'm not trying to take that away from them. I'm not saying that it's not important, and that's maybe part of what they need to be sharing. But for me, I'm the white pill last rabbit hole guy. That's what I'm trying to do, you know, and just try to make it as simple as possible, and try to boil everything down and make all this woo-woo shit, you know, accessible and practical and usable in real time, you know? So for my purposes, it doesn't matter if the earth is flat or round or hollow or pizza shape. It doesn't really matter to me. I do think it's interesting, and I love everyone's work on it. It's super curious how a lot of this shit gets banned. I don't think it matters, you know, how somebody starts asking questions. Just fucking start asking some questions, you know? Just ask why. What is this shit? You know, just start the process, and then it just, like, I think it will ultimately just start unraveling. So if it's flat earth, like, I shared that with a friend of mine, and just almost as a joke, you know, but she was an open-minded person, so she was like far out, you know, and she's like, where is it? I was like, it's on the back of a turtle, you know.
Yeah, there's some sort of kraken underneath that or something.
Yeah, like, exactly.
It's gonna crack open and it's gonna eat the world. It's crazy, but don't worry, it's not gonna happen for a while.
But I mean, there's definitely something to the Antarctica thing, you know, the North Pole thing, not being able to go to these places. I don't know if there's a giant, you know, black magnetic rock at the North Pole, and that's where the entrance to the torus field of the earth is. Maybe. I mean, it's possible, sure. You know, the silicon thing, and that's really interesting to me because it would somehow explain some of the shit that's ancient, like the giants and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, which is bizarre. And carbon being the thing that has like 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons, that explaining that whole thing, like the carbon bit. I'm like, man, that is just all too convenient and creepy and weird, you know. He definitely made some connections that blew my mind.
Convenient is an interesting word there, and I would use it as well, because a lot of this stuff, it feels like we're on information overload these days. And sure, I think we could speak to the accessibility of information, which is a good thing, but at the same time, the accessibility for, like, bad actors to, like, throw shit in that's not real, or it's a circus now. And to me, and I can imagine you might have a similar take on this, I've been kind of thinking on a spiritual level, because I really do believe in this kind of Russian doll fractal scale invariance of reality, that on one level we have these sinister bad guys, right? And they're locking us down in our homes and all that. But also it looks like the universe is personifying something to tell us to go inside, to go within. And I just think it's an interesting, it pisses some people off when I talk about it, because they're like, well, what we have to destroy these people. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe it's more than just that level, you know? Maybe that's just the gross physical.
I think, you know, that's something too that I'm like really passionate about. Is really why I started making videos with my face on it. Because, you know, I really wanted to get the idea that where attention goes, energy flows. And so many people who are fighting against whatever that is, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Your cause, their cause. If you're fighting against something, you're reinforcing it. You know,
Yes.
It's like, these are the things that don't work. We have to use our attention in a constructive manner. If you're destructing something, you're actually adding to it. It's like the nothing in the never ending story. You know, you're just radiating fucking energy at this terrible, awful thing. Look at last year and tell me I'm wrong about that. You know what I'm saying? All it does is just continue to erode the cause that you really believe in. You can't be anti something. It doesn't work. It's impossible. You have to be for a cause. Otherwise, I mean, you're just fucking shit up. You're just making a mess. You're just, you know, destroying things with no way to take those pieces and reconstruct them. So, you know, something that I'm really passionate about is, you know, talking to people who are like, look what they're doing. And it's like, it's true. Yeah, they're doing that. I see the tornado. There's a shelter over here, you know, or we should maybe build one if there's not, you know what I mean? Like,
I'll put the lights on it, you know?
Yeah, I don't have all the answers to, like, as you said earlier, it's like, we don't have to know all the answers. That's okay. That's why we have a community. That's why we say, hey, look, there's a tornado coming. And then we bounce that off of somebody else, and somebody else, you know, people are smart. They're clever. They have reasons for being. They have, you know, clever skills and stupid human tricks that, you know, can, you know, continue. I think the universe is living too. And I think that the universe does have a will that is loving, you know? And I think one of the things that a friend of mine said, who's kind of a shaman to me actually, is that if there was a such thing as unconditional love, it would have to be tested, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, because
wow,
that's the last thing I wanted to hear. But, you know, and you hear it all the time, and it's kind of cliche. There's no bad or good. If the good overtook the bad. But in that context, it maybe makes a little bit more sense to understand, look, if it's your job, and in my opinion, I could reduce it all down. It's our job to learn what unconditional love is. That's why we're having a human experience. That's my opinion, whatever. But in order to do that, it has to be a real test. You know what I mean? They couldn't be a fake test for that. It would have to be legitimate. And I think that's the pickle. And maybe, you know, maybe we come here for this particular experience. I don't know. I haven't ever done past life stuff. That's something that I'm going to do soon. You know, I've been working on this life. There's a lot of work to do with this one.
Right.
But, you know, I'm going to incorporate that. There's people, you know, that I'm networked with that can help me with that. And I'm just waiting for kind of the right time. But I think all of this stuff, it all, it's like the Kabbalion, I guess, you know, you can't separate anything from the all. It's all part of it. And we have to navigate it and understand this sort of plight, you know, like Max Egan talks a lot about it too. I like his work a lot.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
And G. Edward Griffin too. He said as much like a few months ago when I was depressed and in bed, and I was watching A Union of the Unwanted. And I was sitting there and I was just like, this is the worst, blah, blah. And I was very much in a victim, look what they're doing to us mentality. And I was really bummed out, man. Like when this shit hit, I definitely hit hit another like low, because I knew what was coming after all the fucking research I did back,
Right.
Years and years ago. But J. Edward Griffin said this was an opportunity, that it was a catalyst for us as a community to begin to create our own systems and do our own things and step away from these other systems. And I think he's exactly right. And I've seen it happen, maybe more slowly than what I want, but the universe only works in its time. And like Emerson said, nothing ever happens too early or too late. So get used to that shit. But like, I'm seeing it happen because I'm sitting here talking to you, and had this whole thing not happened and transpired in reality, I don't know that I would be doing that. My whole life would be completely different. I would be doing something else, and probably selling out to Hollywood, working on TV shows or whatever.
Yeah, I'd probably be doing nothing but work and home, and wondering why I wasn't feeling fulfilled. Because honestly, and I know that a lot of people have had a lot of hard time through all this. And I consider myself very lucky, and I know I'm not alone either, that had a lot of good come out of this time period. And I think sharing that, and more of us sharing that, is a good thing, because it really kind of highlights what we can do when we kind of have some contemplation and perturbed experiences. Like, I brought up psychedelics, as I always do. That's a perturbed form of conscious experience. It perturbs your normality to the point where you have to look at things differently. And that's literally what happened on a civilization level. And I like to kind of see it that way, as it's that as above, so below, right? It's the individual needs that deep dive back into all the past secrets that you've built scary monsters around in walls. And you have to tear those monsters down. And I think maybe on a cultural level, maybe that's why we're digging into our past so hard, more than just in, little pockets of, subcultures like we've been a part of for so long, but it's growing. And I don't think that that's just my naive bias. It feels like it's really growing in that sense. And maybe it's because we're all really needing to do that deep digging as a society.
I love that. I honestly, like, just over here tapping, like, come on, let's go. Because I love it. I love sharing this stuff. I love talking about it. I love working with people. I love people, and so I'm an introvert, but I love people.
Me too, man.
Funny, but
like I want to be home most of the time, but I love talking to people.
Yeah, but I'm here. I want to be a resource. I know there's a lot of other people who do, and I want to encourage anybody like that. You can live a life that you're happy with, like, no matter what's going on, who's doing who, whatever over here, that's gonna just be a thing. And we do have to come together and do our own thing. And I think that's maybe part of our charge or challenge or whatever this thing is. We'll figure it out. This is how, like, what I would call outer intention or would work, or like the will of the divine. It's not something that's hurried, or it's not something that's like so specifically strategy. Not that having a strategy is bad, but it's a combination of, it's a balance. It's movement, it's intention, and then it's making decisions through like this alternative flow of options that we get as we navigate forward. So I love that we're all being a part of this process and using each other as resources. How smart of Mark, for instance, to put us together in the Alt Media United thing.
Absolutely.
Really love that, dude. It's been great, because like I'll just reach out to somebody and I know that we're on the same page about some stuff, so I can just shout at them and have them on a show or vice versa, do all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I love that the community has come together. I'm seeing like more like panel shows and stuff like that. It's fucking awesome.
Oh man, they're so much fun. And I usually say it on those panel shows that I host. It's like my favorite part is watching at the end when everyone's like, hey, can I get your email? And yeah, oh dude, I'd love to have you on. I'm like, yeah.
Matchmaker.
Yeah.
Dude,
it just feels good, and I think it's cool because the buzz is that we got to like do this more in person too. We got to put our money where our mouths are, because it's like we've been cooped up, whether it's just from our normal lives and this is a good way to communicate, or because of the lockdowns and all this shit. I think it is definitely about time to kind of put our money where our mouths are and show the people that hear us and watch us that we can do this in person if we want to. We can go wherever we want and we can get together and we can talk about these things without screens. And I think, and this has been a recent theme that's coming up a lot, that doing it in person, like, for real is it cannot be taken for granted. Like, it's the most important form of communication. And maybe it's on my mind because I've been researching Bach Saga. It's all about a tradition that's handed down orally. And part of the story is that, the evil kind of seeped in once the black ink hit white paper. Like, that's kind of a metaphor that's in there. It's really interesting.
That is so fascinating. Yeah, I was tagging along when you were exposing that stuff, and it's like, man, that is fascinating to me. It's like that, like I'd never heard of that before. Like, that's some new history shit too, it seems.
Dude,
like.
Yeah, for me too, honestly. I mean, I've been in it for like a few months, 6 months now, and I can't wait for the new podcast I'm doing with Dan and Yake, because it's going to blow the doors up my mind too. I mean, we're all kind of learning more and more as we've been talking about here. Let me get your take on this about all the cool history stuff. I've been following like Graham Hancock for like 20 years. Love his work, love his books, and I love his phrase, shit keeps getting older. And now we got like all this contracting time and Tartaria. What do you make of that weird dichotomy? Do you see that as, what do you see that as?
Oh, I don't even know how. Yeah, because I mean, all this stuff, like new things just keep coming to light all the time, and I was just blown away with any of this because I had never, and some of it's so obvious too, like that's the stuff that gets me, is like, how did I never ask this question? Like whatever that winds up being, but, or even, I don't know, man,
Hey, I don't have an answer either. It's unreal. It's weird. It almost feels, part of me feels like, is this the Hegelian dialectic? Is this somehow a red versus blue, like kind of, they're going to start developing a way to pit people against each other over this? Like, no, we're really old. No, we're really young, and it's a lie. And it's, I don't know, maybe that's just me projecting into that negative space though.
Well, I mean, we do see the factions and stuff, and that does happen, which is a shame because I think we should really try to focus more on what we have in common. But I mean, I think it's natural too. I understand a little bit more about group dynamics through some of the spiritual stuff that I've studied. I certainly hadn't perfected it yet, but I've learned a lot through experience. And there are things that we do as a group we don't even realize. It's very subconscious. It's like embedded in our behavior. The author Vadim Zeland calls it pendulums. Other people other people have different ways. Frederick Dodson calls it waves, and even the Kabbalion is rhythm. And so we get like sort of hypnotized really through these different scripts in life, and we react. When you're in a big group, you're keying off the charge that's in that group, whatever that feeling is. That's why people do shit that's way out of character for them in a group, start breaking windows and shit, but they're totally a good person. They're influenced by an energy. It's influential. It's powerful. It's not it's not nothing, there's not nothing there. There's an energy there. It's collectively created, I believe, through attention by choosing. All the people in that group, they choose, their energy all radiates at a certain frequency as a result of that. And then it's a give and take from there, like they are resonating at this frequency and they're basically just doing its bidding, right? Like it's a script. It's basically like a script where, this thing happens and the reaction is this, and it's really almost automatic. It's totally subconscious.
Dude, you just have, my hair just stood up because I had an experience on acid with a few friends one time where it felt like we were going through a script. We were just hanging out. It just happened to be on acid, but like for the most part, it was just a typical Friday night where we would do very typical things. And maybe it was just the acid, but it so felt like the three of us were hyper aware of every step we took. It's like, okay, now now it says we do this, right? We've done this a million times before. Haven't we been here before? It was just a very repetitive process. And you kind of can see those patterns.
Yeah, it's like you have to choose out of the script where there's almost an expected reaction, right? Like it's provocation, reaction, like right into that trap. And that's what we do so often if we're not, aware and watching out for that, because like that's how energy works. It's how you wind up giving your energy out because you don't have like a strong guardian or whatever. And if you're not like sort of like as it talks about in the Kabbalion, like the higher up you go, the less the swing is. So like you can observe it. And then at that point, like you can be like, oh, I see what's happening here. And then if you act in a different way that's not according to the script, you keep your energy. And then you do something different. And that can be something funny too. That's why I love comedy. Part of the reason I love comedy so much is because if you do something unexpected, as silly, that's unexpected, like if you're in a situation, think of any social situation where someone's shaming someone or something, and then they fart or they make a funny joke right at an inappropriate time, all that energy is quashed, it's just gone, it's sucked out. Anything like that, just understanding like it's push comes to shove. That's what when we're asleep and we're just like going to the rhythm of it, we're in that pendulum or wave or whatever, and it's like this happens and this happens and this happens and this happens. But all it takes is to just sort of sidestep a little bit, do a little bit of something different, just being more observant and aware and stingy with our attention, frankly.
Damn right. I like to focus on the idea that our phrase paying attention is taken for granted often. We're paying our attention, and that's a big thing. As soon as I heard that from my shaman friend, I have a shaman friend too. I got to check on, you reminded me, I got to check on him. I haven't talked to him in a few months. Shout out to Bucks Mulder. But he would told me that, and it immediately gave me that visualization in my head, like, oh my God, what have I been paying? I am in so much debt. Like I am so spiritually broke. What has happened? I have been playing far too much Doom. A little bit of Doom's okay though.
Yeah, no, it is. No, you got to have your recreation time, ways to, I think
shadow self is fun to play with, right?
Oh, dude, totally. I think it's fun to, do something, especially, I think it's probably more harmful to hook into a news cycle, right? And energetically get sucked into that. And then now you're manifesting that because we're just manifesting machines. Yes. Or you just play this game that's not real, it's not real, you have an emotional experience and enjoy it. There's no harm done there. You haven't created anything into the world that's fucking shitty,
Yeah.
Meanwhile, CNN, oh my God, today. I can't even.
Was it about the deer?
Yeah.
Was that the one?
I saw a few different headline changes today. It was pretty funny.
Jeez, I saw one about a deer, and it said like deer identified as spreader of COVID, whatever. And yes, it's ridiculous on its face, but I read it the wrong way. I took it as a deer out in the woods, just a deer, has identified itself as a COVID spreader. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's weird. And I didn't blink. I was just like, oh, deer are identifying themselves now. Okay.
Sure.
And I just like, yeah, that's something we would see, that we're giving deer the permission to identify as different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know it takes a minute to wrap you but it's cool that you said that about like kind of doing something spontaneous, back to that thing, because I do this thing wherever I experience deja vu, I go out of my way to just go do something immediately that I wasn't going to be doing over the next 2 to 5 minutes. Seriously, like I was at work one time and I had massive deja vu, and I knew I'd be sitting on this computer doing this thing for about another 15 minutes. So I just got up and left my work and went over to the other department and struck up a conversation with the 4 people over there that I was friends with. Hadn't seen them for a few hours. And I was like, I'm going to do that because I bet something good will come of this. And sure enough, it was a great conversation that led into something. And hey, who knows what I might have changed, because maybe the deja vu is like a glimpse into another time we were here or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe.
it's interesting. I love that. So I haven't heard your interpretation of it, but I like it. That's interesting. For me, I've always thought, well, maybe it could be like confirmation that you're like in the right place at the right time. But I like that idea to like scramble it. It reminds me of there was this I can't remember what it's called now. God, it's been a couple of years, but it was like this thing you downloaded on your phone. Somehow I found it on Reddit, and it like made you go all to these different places that where you would normally not go to.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but it was
fucking hell. Yeah, I can't remember either, but whatever. And that was interesting and cool. And I got the gist of that. Like, this is to challenge determinism, right? Like, this is to sort of put ourselves in a place that, you know, we wouldn't otherwise be. And of course, you can always make the argument it's circular, but whatever. It was fun. Okay. I enjoyed
it's a spiral.
But yeah, I think maybe kind of the same pitch with that, you know, is it could be cool to kind of break up and do something sort of unexpected to see if that shifts some stuff around in the sort of gluey timeline. Because I do believe in timelines. Like, I interpret it not this woo-woo way, really. You know what I mean? Or I don't know. Maybe it is woo-woo. It depends on your definition. But
let me hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I try to. Well, I mean, we're all here. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people just think they're the only one here and shit. I don't know. I think that's such a toxic belief, anyways. Even the whole NPC thing, which I'll be honest, I've seen some evidence for. I still can't allow myself to just like. To label anybody any differently or any of that kind of stuff. Even if you are running a script, like, you still have free will as far as I'm concerned, you know what I mean? But you know, the timeline thing, it's kind of like the vibrational scale thing too. You know, I think there are multiple infinite timelines, and anything ultimately is possible in the mind of the creator. It's not all possible to manifest all of it. I mean, I guess maybe it is, right? But it wouldn't be very easy. You know, let's just say
those are the masters, right? Those are all our fictional crazy masters that can do all that. Yeah.
Right. Maybe those are gods that, you know, they've won this game or whatever, they've gone on, or this, I don't know, whatever. But
returning champions to Donkey Kong.
Exactly.
High scores.
But I think there's like stacks, right? Like, there's these stacks. And one way to think about it is the book Tufty the Priestess. She says like there are infinite film rolls. There are infinite film roll archives in the other side. In the dream world, they're synonymous, and that blew my cap off when I realized, holy shit, the dream world and God's mind are the same fucking thing. Yeah, I'm like, holy shit. That definitely changed things. But it made me also realize like that if anything is possible, then it already exists. So you don't have to necessarily, it kind of helps you do a little bit of a mental trick where it's like, well, I don't have to create all this stuff, do all these things. And this has, It's like, dude, it already exists. So if it already exists, I don't have to be responsible for making it a real thing. So I just have to get to it. I just have to get to the place where it does exist. And so timeline jumping or whatever, I just visualize like all these different film roll stacks on top of each other. And there are slight variances between each one. They're very slight. But as you kind of go up or down, you know, in these film roll archives, you're jumping timelines. And the shifts are really subtle. But if you pay attention, you will notice shit and you're like, what the fuck? How is that even possible? That wasn't there. That wasn't like that before. Like little weird things. Strangely, that's been my experience, right? Like that's just how I've viewed things. But it's really subtle. It's not something that's like, you're going to poof and then I disappear to some other timeline. And now, you know, I'm in another dimension. No.
Right. Suddenly the Eiffel Tower's in Hawaii. Yeah.
All things are possible. We're manifesting one solid reality together, collaboratively as a, whatever we are. Human
We're collapsing the wave function for those that like quantum physics.
Exactly right.
If people are familiar with the double slit experiment, but kind of just saw it from the sciencey side of it, which is still fascinating, the implication is that we are collapsing that wave function on a mass scale. And we are taking that infinite possibility and funneling it down into, I guess we could say, consensus reality. But shout out to Brandon from Expanding Reality podcast. I just had him on a big roundtable about psychedelics, talking about how consensus reality is over. You know, that's a flawed term or concept at this point, and we can kind of move on from it. But I'm starting to think, ever since you said that, I've been thinking, I wonder if maybe a consensus reality is actually what we're all subconsciously striving for together. We're trying to actually get to a consensus reality. And maybe right now, I don't know, what do you think of this? It's so chaotic right now. And so many things, like we've said, are like seemingly possible in a parallel way, but they don't align with one another. Flat, round, all this kind of thing. I don't know how to frame that as a question, but what do you think of that?
I don't know. At this point, you know, I think there's evidence for most theories, you know, like whatever it is that you're going to, and I think like what manifesting is using confirmation bias to your advantage, basically, right? Like in a positive way. We're always manifesting, like, and I would like to hear what he has to say about consensus reality, but like one of my favorite writers ever is Robert Anton Wilson. And some of the stuff that he talks about, I think is like fucking phenomenal. Like he's the most brilliant mind, or at least, you know, he's been one of the most influential.
I would agree.
Love his books. But like, so the consensus stuff, I think there's an element of that, right? It's not that we can sense its reality, like, you know, whatever, gravity or density. We didn't consensus that, you know what I mean? That's objective. That is, but you know, the way that we perceive the world and the way that we build the world and the filter that we perceive it through, how our culture is defined, all that's consensus. Whether I wipe with my left hand and shake with my right, whatever, all that stuff is agreed upon, you know, and I think there's more power to that than a lot of people give credence to. You know, it's like if we all are radiating our vision toward one thing, then that thing becomes very possible and likely. And there may be some things that try to stop us and all that kind of stuff, because that stuff's real too. It's not some magical incubator where we like fucking radiate and like, oh look, everything's perfect, you know, like we wind up in a rainbows, you know, whatever.
I'm with you, man. I feel like that the only real perfect place is probably when that place within that you find, and that's where that stillness, I find stillness there, stillness and silence, which is weird because, you know, you always hear about like almost like sci-fi adventures that we're all going to go on after we die or something. And to me, the weird experiences I've had have kind of made me wonder if it's really any experience to be defined at all in that space. And it gets me questioning whether our perception is really, how far off is it from our perspective right now? Like, is this supposed to be eternity where we are now, and we're just seeing it the wrong way?
I mean, I think the Eastern mystics would make that argument, like a lot of the, a lot of the stuff that's Buddhist or Hindu, like it's about experiencing just this moment and the essence of what that is. I think there's a lot of power in presence. I think it's also overhyped, like someone like Eckhart Tolle, who's like, just be here now, don't do anything else. And I don't think it's just be here now, don't do anything else. I think it is, yes, be here now, but now you can create. Because if you're not present, you can't fucking create with your own will. You're just creating the script. You're just a fucking sleep character now. Blah, 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 blah. And you're just stimulus response. But once you can become present and control your own mind, now you have the power to consciously create. And especially if there's other people, now you have the opportunity to consciously, collaboratively create, or whatever, whatever you want to do. Fucking hell, you're God, your farts are holy. You know what I mean? It's great.
I know. And it's like, we're a part of that whole, but we are also the whole, and we're also the part. And it's like, we play all of those roles. It's unbelievable. And then you can step outside of it and watch that whole process, and we're still that perspective as well. The one that, like, you go, well, wait, what's this then? The universe just like winks at you and you're like, ah. Or it's like, Dogma, where Alanis Morissette answers, why are we here? She just like, like walks away. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess, and I don't know. We're kind of way off the guardrails here, but we were going to talk about, secret societies, but I think this is much more prevalent. What we're talking about now is clearly resonating with both of us. And I watched a recent video that you made about the process that we all go through when someone wakes up to their illusions, or the process of enlightenment, or whatever we're calling it this week. And I just, first of all, I wanted to say thank you, and I wanted to commend you for that work, because I feel like that's something that so many people deserve to have access to, that roadmap that reassures them that they can say, okay, I'm not alone, and this is expected. This is to be expected. And maybe this is what can come next. I have light at the end of the tunnel here. I'm not crazy. And you even say it in that video that, you wish you had help here. I wish I had help here. And I'm going, amen, brother. And my wife is saying the same thing. She's going, yep, to everything. So I would love to talk about that and let my listeners hear that,
Yeah. Man, it's just such a crazy roller coaster. And like I said earlier, man, we still don't know what reality is. I can't tell you. We have models. That's why I love Robert Anton Wilson so much too, is because he's like, dude, the menu is not the meal. The map is not the territory. I'm like, yes, all of that, because that's how we get into these little pockets, and these factions or whatever. It's like people start arguing over stuff, but it's like, dude, it's a model. It's all a model. If we can just understand that, and sovereignty, all we have to agree on is sovereignty, and then the suitcase can come open, and we can kind of sort things out, and whatever, it doesn't matter. I think it's all on the table, really at that point. But yeah, as far as the waking up, it's just, I want to reassure people, because I do wish I would have had somebody. I felt so alone when, I went through, I don't know what else to call it. I'll just call it waking up process. And enlightenment, I don't know. I don't think you even get enlightenment by reaching for it. That's almost this, just really
like grasping
elusive.
At water, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's just as really elusive anyway. But as far as, I would say, knowing yourself, individuation, self-awareness, cultivating a sense of identity, I think all of that is really tied together. And I think each and every one of us has really a unique map, we can just even look at like fingerprints or whatever, that we are each completely unique and different. There's not another one like us, which is a fucking miracle. I look in the sky, the clouds are never going to look like what they look like right now, whatever that is. And that blows my mind every single time, you know? And I want everybody to be able to fulfill what they believe their purpose to be. And if you don't believe that you have a divine purpose, then we can go the postmodern route and you can make it up. So it doesn't matter to me, it's 6 and 1, but I think that it's a really powerful tool to have to ground yourself and have a bit of a sort of mission statement, let's say, for yourself. It's been something that helped me out so much. Like when I got out of school in 2008, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just ruined a whole band with a relationship that I was in. And it was classic, bro. Classic. Talk about script. But you know, I didn't know what to do. So I just tried all these different things thinking that would fulfill my purpose. That would make me feel fulfilled, like I had a reason, like a raft guide, ski instructor, adventure instructor, outdoor educator, tree farm owner operator, you know, festival worker, TV producer, you know, comedian, whatever, you know, all that stuff. I've tried so many things thinking that I would somehow find a role in society that would fulfill me. And lo and behold, every job sucks. Spoiler alert. It's who you do the job with, I think, more than the job itself. But I think that we have a purpose that really, and it sounds like it's going to be limiting and pigeonhole us, but I think that once you kind of identify what your purpose is, it's something that you can put into any role or function in physical reality. Whatever container, you can bring your essence to that thing, right? And so I think that's really what it's about. So through Ikigai, it's like a Japanese, ancient Japanese idea for finding your reason for being. That's like a lot of kind of what my attention and focus has gone toward, because I feel like that's what's really helped propel me, especially in the moments when I was like, fuck, you know, I feel overwhelmed, tragedy strikes, whatever happens. And I'm like, fuck, you know, what do I have, you know, other than my virgin butthole? You know what I mean? Maybe it's not virgin, but for the sake of this, we're not that deep on the Deep Share podcast yet.
Yeah, that's for like an hour or two that doesn't exist yet. In hour 2, we go deep inside Bootsy's butthole.
No, I don't think anybody wants to do. Well, some of my ex-girlfriends really wanted to get their finger up. I don't know why, but yeah, I really think you know, we are here for this time. We are here for this. If this was something we chose before, which makes sense, that's plausible, then I would have fucking been like, yeah, dude, let's do the fucking 10 out of 10. I'm the enthusiast. I want to go fucking hard, you know, and be here for such a crazy transitional, uncertain time. And no matter what, you know, like our parents were wrong about everything. Our grandparents were wrong. They were all fucking wrong. So there's nothing but uncertainty. So yeah, it's our job. We got to get used to being in uncertainty, or else I don't know if anything, you know, that's like a skill I think you need to have to really start getting to the point where you feel like you have control. It's like we come into the world, and I think as kids, maybe we already are tuned in to abilities that, you know, ultimately are burned out of us by culture, society, whatever. But we naturally have those and intuit them, and then we disregard them, and then we come back in and start to open up and notice that we can control reality. We were just trying to do it the wrong way before. It's like having the video game controller, but it's to the wrong console, and the one that's on the screen right here, you're pushing on the buttons, but nothing's working. You know, you don't have the right remote control. So, you know, that's really where I want to focus, because I don't think it has to take, you know, 3 years, or maybe it wasn't 3 years. I'm being hyperbolic, but like maybe I'd say a year, 18 months of just absolute bone crushing depression. I think that you can really shorten that, you know, from the beginning part and say, hey, look, you know, we've all learned this. Take some time. You got to go through the 5 stages of grief. Otherwise, you're not truly healing, but it's okay. We're going to equip you with some tools that you can use, and you'll start to see some changes in your reality. It's like there's so much discombobulated information, and we really are overwhelmed that sometimes we just have to sit down and make a very clear commitment to ourselves that we're going to work through one model. All these different models of reality, they're all great, but I think it's important to start with one. After you've deconstructed, then you have to reconstruct your mind. It's important to view the world in a positive manner. Just seeing that positive attitude affects other people around you and makes you notice opportunities that you otherwise wouldn't if you were literally walking around like this. It's very practical, but building and cultivating, your mind and your ability to kind of, have that observer, that sort of inner watcher that's like, nope, very, very consciously cultivating that view of the world, because we get to build it. And that's really what creating reality is. We get to build our own view of the world. And then that view is reflected back to us by physical reality itself. And so I think it is possible to sort of shorten this time, that it would normally take to kind of go through all this, and having a network, having people. I mean, God, that would have been incredible. And then having, somebody take a bunch of information and just compress it and be like, here's the sort of layout,
right?
Here's what, and it's always changing, like we've been talking about.
It is. I like the Eastern mysticism aspect of it, where it's an ever unfolding lotus flower, where the details continue to become more and more detailed. It's unreal. But I think what you're kind of saying is, let's give people a way to focus on the through line, regardless of the different shades of gray that we come in contact with during this process. Because at the end of the day, regardless of the worldview, like I that's why I wanted to have David Weiss on a while back, was because his end point is, there's some kind of force that's trying not to allow us, or trying to trick us into thinking we're powerless. So regardless of my take on the earth or some of his personal philosophy, I knew I was going to jive with Dave right off the bat, because I have that conclusion too. A lot of us see even that particular thing in a different way. Like I was telling you before, I kind of see it as more of our lower ego side is what is kind of doing that on a collective level, like a collective ego to the collective consciousness. I'm sure I'm sounding like a broken record to some of my listeners, but I feel like it fits here perfectly,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, that's my stake too. It's like, hey, sovereignty here, and everybody who can agree on that. I don't care what you believe. I don't care what your sexual preferences are, or how you identify. I don't give a fuck. Don't care. Sovereignty. That's it. We're good. Suitcase. Open it. Flat Earth. Hollow Earth. No Earth. I don't give a fuck. Like, let's party. You know what I mean? There's gonna be some weird shit in that suitcase. It's gonna be some Vegas kinky. Some sort of shameful, but that's all right, as long as everybody sort of understands that. And then what factions are there at that point? It's like, we all understand that we're sovereign beings, we're all, we all have those rights. It's really simple. I remember that was another critical point for me too, I'll have to say, is finding Mark Passio's work and his work on, moral relativism specifically. Like, he just laid that shit out so clearly. And a lot of people might not jive with Mark and how he presents, which he even caveats at the beginning. But, I think the information is insanely valuable that he put together. A lot of the symbology stuff I learned so much from. His stuff is really pivotal.
Dude, we've talked about so many like great authors and speakers on this podcast. We should put like all of them in my show notes. Like I was already going to ask you to please send me like some of the books that you've mentioned already. I think I got a few books I want to mention to you.
Awesome.
We'll start a little book club.
I love book clubs. Yeah, I love books and book clubs.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah, man. I've been reading.
What you been reading lately?
I've been reading more like marketing and business books, but I recently came across a book that I recorded, and it's called Heal Your Wounds, Find Your True Self by Lise Bourbeau. It's spelled Liseborbeau. She's French. Fucking phenomenal book, man. Like as far as like understanding wounds and the way that we interact in life. I mean, she points out eating habits, body types. It's insane how accurate some of the stuff is.
That's awesome.
It's going to become part of my curriculum and the trauma stuff, because, you know, to me, that's like a lot of the important, you know, letting go and acceptance is found through that. And she does a great job of explaining the different wounds and how we experience them. For instance, like you and I could have the same thing happen to us. You might experience it as abandonment and I might experience it as shame. You know, it's my wound to heal in this lifetime is, you know, either one of the 5, and the archetypes are spot on. So I just finished that book and I highly recommend it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
I can jive with that big time. Like, and often like I know people who were raised with terrible upbringings, and one, you know, really shows those scars in their personality and has had a rough road about it. I know someone else with a different but similar horrible upbringing, and now, you know, you'd be she has wings, you know, and she is like the light in any room, and she's powerful and driven. And I see this other person, I can't wait to see them get there. You know what I mean? But it all affects us differently. It all triggers different things. Sometimes bad situations immediately trigger such courage and bravery, and other times the self doesn't know what else to do but hide and protect itself, you know, and it's unbelievable. And that's just that beautiful fractal nature, where my wife and I have been talking a lot about generational curses and generational healing. Sure. Yeah. And it's like, I'm getting chills right now, just thinking, kind of back to the deja vu thing, where it's like, once you look into your family's history, and, you know, my wife's been doing that a lot and seeing so many patterns and going, wow, I am breaking so many of these patterns. And I'm looking at mine going, holy crap, just on such micro levels, macro levels, just, it's unbelievable. And now being a parent, it's just exponential. It's unbelievable. And I think just the awareness of these things this is what growing up is. I think that's why the old traditions were like, send the 12-year-olds into the woods for 4 days, because they will come back men. That is grown up.
Sure. Yeah. Give them some DMT.
DMT and a stick.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, that whole thing, you know, having those rites of passage. You know, I have a friend who's really passionate about that, you know, wants to do some rites of passages for younger men, you know, that are coming into adolescence. But I think, honest to God, like people who are my age, I personally would probably benefit from doing that myself, even though I'm fucking almost 40, you know.
Same here. Yeah.
You know, but
I'm learning so much more now than I ever was before, you know, when I thought I was learning more. But
no, that's amazing. I'm shocked too. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that the rabbit hole went this deep when I first jumped into it. I mean, I would have had of course, and it's just never ending, but I had no idea.
Hell yeah, man. Well, it's been really great talking to you, man, and getting to know you. And I'm sure we'll have to do another one. And I usually do this with some people where like we have just kind of like a jam session like we have, and then maybe we'll come back and do something more particular or something. Because I knew we were going to jump around and just kind of get to know each other and shoot the shit. And this has been really great, man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your work, and I appreciate you coming on. So please tell my audience where they can find you.
Dude, thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate you and everything you're doing. I think your show is great. I love what you're about. I'm glad that you're, continuing your education. Like, how amazing. And I have some things I want to talk to you about too, as far as like, doing some show stuff too. I got a couple of ideas, and we'll talk about that later. But for anybody who wants to find me, stripper name, Bootsy Greenwood, just type that into a Google search, or Instagram, your favorite social media platform. I'm trying to be everywhere. It's probably a mistake, but I'm doing it. Sometimes I'm available on Facebook, sometimes not. I have a YouTube, and fortunately Content Safe distributes my stuff, so it's on Gab TV and BitChute and Odyssey and all of those platforms. And then I just have my website, bootsygreenwood.com. You can get free audiobooks there. A little short book that I wrote about finding your purpose has a great little technique in there. It's absolutely free. You just have to get on my email funnel, which I don't have like a autoresponder or any of that. I just sling weird memes from time to time. So if you're into
Nice.
that, just if you want to see me on the back of a unicorn, or something like that, then hop on the email list, because you'll get a weird email every once in a while. I try to be encouraging and give as much away on my email list, but I will occasionally let people know that I'm taking on clients, or I have a specific project or something that I want to promote, but try not to be too sleazy in there.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again so much for coming on, and yeah, stick around. We'll talk a little bit after this. But everybody, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did, and yeah, go check out Bootsy Greenwood's stuff. Have a great night.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places, and remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Until next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, that's hysteria. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know? What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...